don't know if anybody around this table saw Almost Famous, but one of the
It's my favorite movie ever.
Okay, so the plane's about to go down. The bassist admits he's gay. Everybody's throwing up. Another band member admits that he's having an affair with another band member's wife. Everybody's screaming that they hate everybody. And then the plane pulls up and they land. And they're walking through LAX, and everybody's just... That's how this trip to Obama had today.
That's terrible. That's not funny.
Everything went wrong. By the way, I stand with my president.
Me too.
When he is overseas, and the disrespect that was shown to my president and my country was nothing less than disgraceful. And I want to start with the China incident, if we can.
Just take it. Go ahead. Seriously, no, that's good.
The China incident. You said something very interesting, Nicole.
No script.
George W. Bush went places where he was hated, where he was loathed. He went to Venezuela. Was he ever treated that way? And by the way, Susan Rice, if my national security advisor had been yelled at by a Chinese official, I would have bolted over there and said, I don't know who you are. Get the translator.
I'm going to say something that might make my phone ring, but I believe it to be true. If someone messed with Condoleezza Rice, and I think they would have messed with the president before they messed with Condi Rice, I honestly think he would have punched him. I mean, the fact, and as
he definitely would have gotten right in there.
We went to places where, I mean, I went to the South American summit where he spoke after Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez was celebrated. Bush was hissed. I mean, we went to places where the hostility toward President Bush and the administration was extreme, and we were never treated like this president was treated in China.
Richard Haas
is here, president of the Council on Foreign Relations.
The insults from the Philippines leader. I rolled my eyes.
What happened?
It's the Philippines.
And what do you think?
China, like wanting to step in and become the next great power, wanting to be respected on the world stage, to treat the United States president, to treat the United States national security advisor this way is inexplicable.
Describe exactly what happened.
Yeah, first of all, for people that
I think it is explicable, possibly.
Explain what happened.
We've been talking about it for years, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, the president showed up. The proper steps weren't there. Then there was all sorts of issues where the press wasn't allowed to go places. Arrangements that were made were all of a sudden unraveled. Chinese officials were incredibly combative. So the question is, what's going on? Were these rogue officials? Highly unlikely. In China, it's not a place where your careers tend to benefit from going rogue. So the real question then is who advanced.
That's a great way to put it.
But who would have advanced this? So the real question is whether it's the political leadership, the military leadership, some local guy. What I think it says is less about Obama than it says something about China. This is nationalism, pure and simple and raw. This is Chinese assertiveness. What's happened in China, and Steve will probably, I think, agree with this, as the economy has slowed, the Chinese leadership need to find a new source of legitimacy. They need to find a new way of connecting with their people, and the scary and worrying.
So you're basically saying they're going to morph into Russia. It's going to be a foreign policy based on resentment.
Well, we hope it doesn't, but that's the challenge now. It's becoming a more combative, more nationalist country. They feel this is their time. They need to be respected. This is their moment in the sun. Yeah. And I think what we're seeing is this kind of behavior.
Well, Gene, at least we have presidential candidates that will tamp down the tensions between the United States and China.
Yeah, right. Yeah, not going to happen. I think it's going to get worse. I think Richard Haas is absolutely right in terms of the nationalism that we saw there and the prickliness. China is increasingly treating its neighborhood like its private neighborhood and resentful of the United States influence in Asia, and I think that will just continue. I would remind Nicole of one thing, though. George W. Bush did have a shoe thrown at him.
That's true.
When he was overseas.
Not by
that was something of a sign of disrespect.
In Iraq, by a journalist. We wouldn't expect less from journalists.
So what, David Ignatius, what's with the disrespect of this country and the president? The Philippines, I'm reading
oh my God.
Here. The Philippines president called
Better
the president,
you than me.
quote,
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Okay, I won't say it, but the Philippines president made an extraordinarily offensive comment about not only Barack Obama, but also his mother.
Yep.
I don't know what he said.
And then the president canceled the meeting.
I'm not going to read it out loud. What's going on?
Well, late in Barack Obama's term out in Asia, where he had really fought to make a mark to rebalance U.S. strength, the president got a series of what you'd have to say are rebuffs. And I think there is evidence here that countries don't take the U.S. and its leader as seriously as they should. To be honest, Rampgate in Guangzhou is less striking to me than Duterte's comments, which were just so out of line. The Philippines is a country that needs the United States. We've been working closely with them on issues involving the South China Sea. We're making military commitments to protect them. And here's their president using the most insulting language, I must note, after using similarly insulting language about the U.S. ambassador in Manila. So I think this kind of behavior says people around the world feel they have an easier time taking a cheap shot at the United States and at our president. It should bother all of us.
It should. And then there's this sort of an icy stare between President Obama and Russian President Vladimir Putin in front of cameras before sitting down for a 90-minute discussion. The president says they held business-like talks on a number of issues, including ongoing cyber attacks in the U.S., putting a stop to the war in Syria, along with the fight against ISIS.
I like that stare.
Whenever you use the word
we have had some productive conversations about what a real cessation of hostilities would look like that would allow us, both the United States and Russia, to focus our attention on common enemies like ISIL and Nusra. But given the gaps of trust that exist, that's a tough negotiation. And we haven't yet closed the gaps in a way where we think it would actually work.
You know, I was struck, Richard, in the first couple of meetings with Vladimir Putin, with Barack Obama, how disrespectful Putin's body language was. He'd slump in his chair, sort of thing that a lot of leaders would say, listen, if you're not interested, I'm going to get up and leave now. Barack Obama giving the icy glare back there, business-like, as we said, business-like discussions means absolutely nothing happened. Is this the disrespect? Is that being shown to the president specifically? Is that being shown to the United States standing the world in 2016? A little of both. Why one insult after another this week?
I think it's a little bit of both, and I think it's because the president's major centerpiece of his Asia policy is getting the trade agreement passed. Nothing's happening there. We're not on the ground in serious ways in Syria. Russia is much more. So what's happening in all these areas, the United States is seen as, to use the fancy word, retrenching. We're not seen as pushing. The Russians are all in Syria. The Chinese are all in Asia. The Turks are all in their neighborhood. And the United States is seen as not all in. So, of course, U.S. influence is going to wane to some extent, and that's what we're seeing here.
And nothing good happened on Syria policy at this meeting.
Absolutely nothing. Nothing happened at the G20. I mean, the ostensible reason for all this was this big gathering of international leaders. There's virtually nothing to show for it.
But David, I mean, we've made that complaint around this table. Not you. I'm talking about myself and a lot of people in New York about the president leading from behind, not being assertive, being so cautious that he didn't want to do stupid stuff, and basically obsessed to not be George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. But that doesn't explain the contempt that we've seen this week towards the president and U.S. officials. Care to take a shot at that? What's going on?
Just briefly, I think when historians look at Barack Obama's presidency, they'll see a president who desperately wanted to pull American forces and power and commitment out of the Middle East, which he thought was a loser, and rebalance, in his phrase, to Asia. And at the end of his presidency, we're stuck in the Middle East, fighting a war half-heartedly in Syria. That is something that the president can't escape, won't escape the day he leaves office. And in Asia, which was supposed to be the strategic crowning point of his policy, the president goes out on his last trip and is treated, as we've noted, with a kind of contempt. Certainly didn't accomplish much. So I think on both ends of that, the president must feel this effort I made has not, if he's honest, has not gone the way it should have.
And just like none of Donald Trump's pivots end up being reality. There never was a pivot to Asia, and you complained about it, that they never made that pivot to Asia. And is this the result of that?
It's a result of what we didn't do in the Middle East and what we've never implemented in Asia. 80% of life is showing up. Policy has got to be implemented. To declare a pivot and to carry out a pivot are two very different things.
Didn't Woody Allen say 90% was
80%?
Was it 80%?
Richard Haas, thank you very much.
Woody Allen was much better than me.
David.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.